listeners, welcome back once again to Lost in Postulation. My name is Neil Fitzpatrick and I am joined this week by, unfortunately, absolutely nobody. A little bit of a strange week here, so just going to drop in a quick explanation as to what's going on and what you can expect from this week's episode, as well as how it will be back to normal from next week onwards. So yeah, as I said, I'm here steering the ship as best I can on my own. Nicola is off enjoying a well-deserved break, and we decided rather than trying to phone it in, literally or metaphorically, we decided instead to dig into the archives. We now have, as you can see, over 20 hours of material out there in the ether, as I often say. And we thought, why not pull a few common threads together, dig back into some discussions we've had, also hear a bit from the listeners and some of the excellent contributions that they've had. So you'll be hearing from a few familiar faces through this episode, which is always great. So hope you enjoy it, and hope you'll bear with us as we get back to normal from next week again. Just one of those unavoidable scenarios we have here, but I'm sure you'll enjoy the episode nonetheless. We're going to be talking about a few different things here, starting off with our various discussions of saunas. We've been actually inundated with listener responses to the sauna topic, so we'll be including some of those here as well. Always happy to hear more as well, so take this as an open invitation to feed in additional postulations if and when you have them. And then we get into our very favorite traveling topic. So we talk a lot about both the plane etiquette, interesting topic there, and then also getting into where to travel, what kind of holidays to have. We've talked about it quite a bit across various episodes. And that's it for today. So that'll take us through the end. So hopefully I'll check back in with you at the end and give you a reminder of the usual things, the socials, etc. In the meantime, you can of course tweet at us. That's @inpostulation@twitter.com. You can also email us. That is lostinpostulation@gmail.com. You can obviously also reach out any other way that you see fit. And we're always delighted to hear from you. But I think without further ado, let's kick it off and hand back over to us from a few months ago and pick up where we left off there, talking about saunas. I have a question for you, sir.
Okay.
It might not be exactly what you're expecting, but I want to know, what is your opinion of saunas?
My opinion of saunas,
Yeah.
like as a sauna being the wooden thing that you get into at certain degrees and sweat a lot. And saunas.
And the reason I ask is I was in one the other day, and I have mixed feelings about it.
Okay, well, I love saunas. So for me, it's kind of a nostalgic thing. So in those cold Minnesota winters while growing up, it was a big thing where you would sauna, roll in the snow, or dip in a hole in the frozen lake, go back into the sauna. So I really acquired that taste. I'm a big fan of them, and I wish I would do them more often, actually, because I do feel like the benefits in terms of cleanliness, in terms of restitution and recovery post sports.
Yeah, for you, for a long distance runner, I guess,
I love the sauna.
Okay.
And I love the contrast doing the sauna with the cold. And absolutely.
Jeez. I don't know. I think the reason I ask is because it's on my mind. I did it on Friday. I did a sauna here in Copenhagen, which included like the sauna Gus experience, by the way, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But I think my reflection was, I've been waiting for the day where it gets good, you know, like I've gone quite a few times and I'm like, I suffer through, like
you don't see what the hype is about.
I think the opposite. I'm like on the verge of passing out, it feels like.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
I'm like,
unfortunate.
I keep going with the expectation that, well, I mean, everyone loves it. So I'm just waiting for the day that I enjoy it. But then I think my reflection from the last time was, no, maybe the point is that it's deeply uncomfortable and you suffer through. And that's what you enjoy at the end. Your brain rewards you for surviving the experience by releasing dopamine and saying, hey, good job, you didn't die, you know? So that's my latest reflection on it.
Yeah, I think the suffering is necessary up to a point, but I think also it's the classic thing. It's like people that, you know, have never run before and then sign up for a marathon and then they go for their first 10K training when they never run and they're like, oh, I got injured, oopsie. Mm-hmm. You have to build up also with these things like a sauna, right? So you can't just once a year go and, you know, I'm going to stay in 15 minutes and I'm going to hold my breath or whatever. Like, I think you genuinely have to like be consistent and build up to be able to enjoy it. So I think there is a light at the end of that tunnel where you can enjoy it, but it takes training. It takes getting used to for your body. It's like the winter bathers, right?
Yeah, same thing.
In the beginning, you're just suffering. By the end, you have some guys that are going out there, you know, every Saturday in the cold water for 5 to 10 minutes.
Look at Wim Hof, you know. Great example. The guy just swears by the ice baths. This is his whole thing.
Exactly.
And he can just do them. He's at the point, he's so well adjusted, he can just hop in and he can talk as if, like we're talking now, he can just be like, yeah, I'm in an ice bath. It's all good.
You build up a tolerance, I think, and there's probably some science behind it, but I imagine it being analogous to, for example, with spicy food, right?
Yeah.
You move somewhere where the food is spicier. So, for example, when I was in Singapore, now I like spicy food, but my tolerance when I came back from Singapore was immense, right?
Yeah.
And then I've taper back down, obviously, but I think there is an aspect of it where, yes, it's the suffering, but you also have to be honest with yourself and build up to it. If you don't have that patience or willingness to, then no, it will never be fun, I think.
Well, there you go. We like to open the episode with a kind of a lighthearted, give me your opinion on this. So I think that was an interesting one. Saunas.
Saunas.
Yeah. Evan, we are diving into the listener mailbag. One of the great things about doing a podcast is you start getting people chipping in with their own postulations, as it turns out. I feel like we're bringing back that word postulation, because I've had so many people hit me with and they don't say opinions or takes, they say postulations straight up. So love that, and thanks everybody.
Respecting the craft.
Respect the craft. Come on, you got to postulate. It's great. So we thought we would refer back to a couple of those and give credit where it's due for some great postulations, and of course keep the door open for future ones as well. Let's keep this as a recurring segment. But one of the interesting topics that I wasn't really expecting to generate as much discussion as it did was, I think it was the start of episode 5, where I threw out the question to you at the very start at our like intro postulation. Right. I was like, what do you think of saunas? And okay, this kind of just, you could probably hear from the audio, I wasn't exactly like, hadn't exactly planned this as like as a big topic, but actually it turned into a good discussion, and it has generated a lot of discussion from our listeners as well. I was contacted just last week actually by a friend of the show, Ilka, up in Finland.
Up in Finland,
yeah. So Ilka is a Finn, and he's not just any Finn. He is a pro. Okay, not to be technically true, he's not a pro sauna user, but he is like basically an absolute expert. Back when I used to work with him more closely, I went up to Helsinki and we went to a proper sauna complex called Lööli up in Helsinki, which is fantastic for anyone who's ever in Helsinki, by the way.
Right.
But he brought me through the whole
saunas.
experience. Yeah. It's wood fired. It's all great. Like, so that was, despite my complaints about saunas in general being a little bit uncomfortable, that was a great experience. But Ilka wanted to help me understand a little bit, help us understand. What is it about saunas? He had 2 pieces of advice that might help our enjoyment of them.
All right.
So number 1 was, he said, Neil, I know what you're doing wrong. He said, you need to have a beer. Beer is crucial for saunas, right? Okay. So either you have it with you in the sauna, you can have it before or after, but beer is a key ingredient with saunas. He says anyway, and he's sure that we would enjoy it more were there a beer involved. That was point number 1. Okay. But point number 2, which was kind of what we talked about, and he also confirmed, which is that it's not really about the sauna itself. It's about how you feel after.
Right.
And I think that rings true. And I can definitely tell you that, that feels a bit more legit, that it is suffering. Like, it isn't.
The suffering is necessary.
Because I don't really buy anyone who says, like, I just love sitting in the hot. Like, no, it's uncomfortable. Like, it is really uncomfortable, right? But the suffering is necessary because when you come out the other side, you do, and especially even that evening, the hours to come after, you feel great. So I think Ilka has it nailed, and if anyone should know, it's a real Finn. So
absolutely.
So thanks Ilka for that one.
What I would be interested in knowing, you mentioned the beer, is if that's due to the alcohol content of the beverage, or is it specifically about beer?
That's a good question. And is it specifically about beer as a drink, or because of the conviviality or the unique nature of beer as a drink, right? And
as a social glue.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's multifaceted. I don't think we'll be able to crack that.
Right.
But I do think beer has a uniquely refreshing quality, right? I know that one of the running clubs in Copenhagen, it uses beer as like one of its central...
Yeah, the Mikkeller Run Club.
Yeah. It's like, and they really swear by it. Even in non-alcoholic beer, they use it as hydration, So like, there is something to it, I guess. But one way or another, I think we have to find out. We have to...
we gotta crack open a couple cold ones and head to a sauna.
Absolutely. That was one opinion, but I think we had one more, right?
We had another one. It's kind of like a listener-on-listener reply from Alex, a resident in Sweden, but of Russian origin. And he told me, and I quote, "I feel great respect for the Finnish sauna." Now, keep in mind, listeners, this is,
he didn't know.
Sauna rivals, the Finns and the
indeed.
The Russians,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And he continued, "I would cut my finger off if I never could go to a sauna for the rest of my life.
That's severe.
But I would kill myself if I could never go to a Russian banya, a Russian bath. He then proceeded to explain to me that those Russian banyas, those Russian baths, are with essential oils and a birch oak, eucalyptus, or juniper besom.
Huge, yeah.
For skin peeling. So to aid that as well. So really getting into this cleansing aspect.
Okay.
And he claims, you'll be born again with a skin like a baby's soft butt. He's had 2 babies himself, so I imagine, you know. He says, dip yourself in a cold spring to cool yourself. Get a cup of beer, or kvass, which he says is the Russian kombucha relative.
Yeah.
And have 12 hours of sleep afterwards.
Yeah. We see some overlap here, though, right? Because the beer thing comes up again. Yeah.
And then he proceeded to invite us. He said, you know what? I'll buy a piece of land here in Sweden, build a banya, and invite the podcasters for a tryout.
That means a lot, and thanks, Alex, for that. I look forward to it. I guess I shouldn't hold my breath as to it happening maybe in the next few months, but I definitely do think I'm up for that. Yeah. I also have to comment on this unique way of describing how much you would hate something by measuring it in terms of how much of your body you would cut off. I think
fatalism.
That is a real. That's a new approach that I think we should adopt for this podcast as well.
I think so. I love it. I mean, very, very visual.
Very vivid.
Again, here what you see is having a drink. The 12 hours of sleep afterwards. I mean, I wish I could get 12 hours of sleep.
Well,
I'd sign up for that anytime.
This is your chance. This is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Amazing. So we will go with Ilka to the sauna, the banya that Alex is going to build in Sweden. TBC. Whenever he's finished building it.
Yeah.
And we'll bring a few drinks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look at that. More sauna postulations to tie us in.
Exactly. And just to tie that up, as soon as you start researching saunas, and why we say the rivals, the Finns and the Russians, is because there was, for a period of about 10 to 15 years, until 2010, there was actually a World Sauna Championship, which saw almost every year in the final the Finns going head-to-head with the Russians, and the Finns winning every year. Yeah. Now you may ask, what the hell is a sauna championship? Essentially, whoever lasts the longest
in the hottest temperature,
in the hottest temperature wins.
Jeez.
It's like a sauna sprint.
When you say lasts, I mean it literally means lasts.
It's a bit of a grim note. In 2010 final, Finland versus Sweden, the Russian contestant actually died in the sauna. So they kind of stopped doing it after that,
which is understandable, right?
I just wanted to go through a bit some of the rules for
please
to
end
on.
Let's do it.
So the starting temperature is 110 degrees Celsius. So that's already up to 20 degrees warmer than our civilian sauna, which we would go to.
Above boiling.
Exactly, but get this, 0.5 liter of water will be poured on the stove for every 30 seconds. So it's getting, every 30 seconds, it's getting progressively steamier and warmer.
I hate it already. Yeah.
Use of alcohol is prohibited prior to and during the competition.
So alcohol, again, it's really like a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. I think otherwise they would use it. It must help. It must numb or I don't know. Competitors must wash themselves beforehand and remove any creams and lotions. Let's be sanitary. Yeah. The competitor must sit erect. Their buttocks and thighs on the bench may not lay down. I always lay down in a sauna. Actually.
Exactly. No, it makes sense.
Ordinary swimsuits must be used, so it is not a nude sauna.
Not a nude sauna. Okay.
Pant legs in men's swimsuits may be up to 20 centimeters long. The measurements there. Hair that reaches the shoulder must be tied into a ponytail.
So the hair could be like a tactical advantage if
cooling effect potentially. Yeah. Creates a bit of a
and I guess
umbrella.
the shorts as well, right? Because it's like they're limiting the length because it might cool you, or if it was wet.
It must be.
Yeah. Good to know.
It must be because once you sweat into those shorts, it kind of continues to cool you, I would guess. Touching the skin and brushing is prohibited.
Okay, you have to just like hold your arms out or something. Yeah,
apparently.
Okay.
That part is crazy because you also just want to, it's a natural reflex to just wipe the sweat.
I get the rule though, because probably if you don't prohibit it, they'll just do it the whole time. They'll spend the whole, and just, it becomes a competition of who can rub themselves most. Yeah.
At the request of the judges, competitors must show that they are in their senses with a thumbs up. So.
My God.
Competitors must be able to leave the sauna unaided to qualify.
Okay, so if you have an award-winning run, but then you can't walk out, you're
Exactly.
out. Yeah, okay.
Exactly, which I think is fair in that sense. A breach of the rules is a warning. Another one results in disqualification. So if you touch, your other arm
you get one
twice,
more.
you're out. The last person leaving the sauna unaided is the winner. So that's the World Sauna Championships, which do not exist any longer. I'm sure if you go on YouTube, you can find some highlights from previous years. But we have a lot to work towards.
100%. And never has there been a tournament that I've ever heard of that I'm more sure that I would lose. You know, like there is a 0.0000000 infinity chance of me ever succeeding in that tournament, even past the first round. I'm just way too attached to my own comfort. I would, at the first moment of uncertainty, I'd be like, "Great, have a great tournament, guys. We'll see you later."
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Also because I didn't even see what the prize money is, but I can't imagine it's.
I doubt these guys
it's
are
tennis-like.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing it for the money. They're here for bragging rights. Yeah.
And the love of the game.
100%.
Well, as you know, and as the listener may know by now, we do like an old mundane postulation to kick us off.
We are mundane.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, sometimes we go just for a topic like, what's your take on this? What's your take on that? But what we've enjoyed a lot, actually, and what has garnered a lot of response from the listeners are the X versus Y debates, where you say still versus sparkling, or pants before socks or socks before pants. These are the ones that get the listener riled up to an unusual degree.
We are a polarized society, after all.
Indeed, we're just banking in on that, cashing in the polarization of our time. But what I wanted to ask you, sir, today is one of the big ones. And I'm talking, of course, about air travel. And when it comes to air travel, which is a field rife with postulation in its own right, but I'm going to ask you today about the aisle versus the window. Where do you want to be?
I'm actually flying tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
And I went out of my way, both for that flight and the return flight, to book the aisle seat.
Finally, one we agree on, because
There we
usually,
go. Look at that. Really?
like with the sandwiches and everything, we've always disagreed, right?
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like we're just being contrary for the sake of it, but actually on this one, I'm with you. So I'm an aisle man all the way.
Yes.
I think the window has its place, and I've definitely had some good window flights. But anyway, give me your principled view on this one.
Yeah. So there's two angles to tackle this from, right? The first one is why the aisle, right? And why the aisle, for me, it's all about freedom of movement. Yeah. So first thing first, don't feel as claustrophobic, right? You can turn around a bit more, certainly more than in the middle seat, but also, the aisle, the window, you can be quite locked in there, right?
Absolutely.
So, but then freedom of movement also, I'm the type of person who, even on just a 2-hour flight, will, no matter what, need to use the facilities at some point, right?
Fair.
And I don't want to be having to negotiate with my fellow passengers and or family members to get out there. Or worse, be caught in the act while they're sleeping of climbing over them, which is just awkward on so many levels. And I've been there.
Yeah,
it's not fun.
Nobody deserves that, I feel.
No, exactly. Neither the perpetrator nor the perpetrated, right? In that case. So that's on the aisle front. On the window front, I think it's incredibly overrated, because a big part is, you talk about the view, right? Now, the view is very limited on most flights. It's the takeoff, it's the landing. If you're traveling in winter or with bad weather, it's often not even those, right? So the other aspect they bring about on the window is, but you can lean your head and sleep. But
so overrated.
Overrated. I mean, invest in a neck pillow, people.
Come on, it's 2023. Yeah,
exactly.
100%. I'm actually with you for different reasons, though. Totally different reasons. So, first and foremost, as a taller gentleman, I hate, flying is uncomfortable by definition, right?
Yeah.
My knees are going to be crushed up against the seat in front of me, particularly on a Ryanair, on the older configurations of Ryanairs where they had these big chunky seats. Your knees are getting damaged every time. So, one slight respite from that is having the aisle, because you can just stick the two legs out into the aisle and I can get a bit of space that way, because there is no way to stick my legs out directly in front of me. So that's nice. That comes with a downside, though, which is when they bring the trolley past, it's always a smack on the legs or on the shoulder or something. I feel the trolley and me don't get on too well,
and you can't really sleep if you need to be alert to be able to bring your legs back in all the time.
Exactly.
Right?
And you're also the guy who has to get up when person B and C are getting to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's not without its downsides, but that's flying to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And the thing with the window seat is, like you, I do agree with you on that point, that I am just that terminally awkward that I would rather just hold it than ask a sleeping person. I certainly wouldn't climb over. Jeez, I'm not risking that minefield.
It takes a lot of agility.
Exactly.
Like, that's,
okay, I'm going to ask it. When you climb over, are you crotch first or ass first to the person?
Let me think.
There is no good answer here.
There is no good answer. I'm definitely crotch first, so I see what I'm dealing with.
It feels more respectful.
It is more respectful, but it's also a bit less risk in a way.
Yeah.
Where
you can use your hands to catch yourself.
Yourself. Exactly. And that's exactly it. You might, inadvertently make contact if you're the other way around simply because you don't see what's behind you, right?
And
so
suddenly you've got an ass in someone's face. Like,
yeah.
My God.
But that's definitely the strategy, I think.
I think so.
If you have to do it.
If you have to. And I mean, I'm talking, if it's like less than 3 hours flight, I'm like, doesn't matter. I'll survive. Yeah, I will survive. I'll be fine, How bad can it be? Unless it's like an emergency of some kind. Let's not get into that on the podcast. I feel like let's not discuss the technicalities of a bathroom break. But once again, interested to hear. I know many people would say window all the way. Like it's like their happy place. They can just cuddle up and go sleep there and whatever. Yeah. But isn't it funny how middle seat is just universally agreed to be horrible? Like middle seat. What a terrible.
It gets a really bad rep. Now, Maria, she loves the window.
Okay.
Not the middle.
I thought you were best in the middle. I was like, Jesus.
She loves the window. So oftentimes I do find myself on a 3-3 configuration to not just be weird and have a rando sitting in between us. I find myself in the middle seat. It's not so bad, I think. Like,
if you have a companion to your left, then you're good. All right. Like, because you can invade their space without feeling bad. But imagine having two randos either side. That's the
and it depends on the length of the flight. And then, like you said, it is important who you're next to, because what I find oftentimes when you fly is that people decide that it was a good idea to leave their brain at home and their manners.
Yeah.
And the classic one on that is when they get up or they're sitting down, without even noticing it, they're pulling the seat back that's in front of them,
and you're
swinging
back.
But it's like, why would you do that? It's like my biggest pet peeve on flights is people just not being aware of their surroundings and annoying the hell out of you. I'm getting agitated.
I can see that. But what I love about this as well is I'm like that, like you. When, say, a vibration hits my chair, a knee hits my back of my chair, I instantly jump to, what is this asshole doing? Like, as in,
you think they're out to get you.
They're literally like just bullying you, like it's playground bullying, when in actual fact, it's probably a purely innocent...
oblivious.
Completely. And I think I've often tried to practice the phrase, like, never attribute to malice what can be attributed to stupidity. And in general, I'm with you, it's stupidity rather than malice at core here. I have also had a few kids behind me who are just like bam, 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 like just banging away. Flying, who needs it? Jeez, trains versus planes. I'm like trains all the way,
What's your what's your time threshold from which you would then shift from a train to a plane? How much are you willing to put up with a train?
I'm willing to I would double my journey time and still be happier with a train. Because, for example, I've taken a train to Stockholm where it's overnight. You sleep on the train, and it was the dream. It
like
was
7
amazing.
hours. Huh?
Yeah, but that train takes 5 hours normally. But then if you take the overnight, they make it slower. So you get on at Copenhagen at like 10, and you wake up at 6 or 7 in Stockholm
with a bed or with...
full bed, like full shower, toilet, everything. It's the dream. Like, you save a night of accommodation that you don't have to pay there in Stockholm. You wake up ready to go, and just save yourself the hassle of getting on a plane and dealing with all that. More to come on night trains, by the way. I really think there's an episode on that, because we are going to see in the next 10, 20 years that Europe is finally stepping into the future and installing fast, like high-speed rail across Europe.
Across Europe. That's the key, right? Because we have it regionally and in some countries.
Per country. Yeah. France has nailed it. But there will be a night train
Italy, let's give them some credit. From time to time, we can give them some credit.
We have to dish it out in small doses.
Exactly, or else they'll get way too arrogant. But before that, we're going to lead with our mundane postulation.
Indeed we are. And it's one that's really on the top of everyone's mind these days. We're talking right now about holidays. And the reason for that is, first and foremost, here we are at the end of March, and everyone is starting to look a bit forward now to the summer holidays, to what they've got planned. Let's not get into our own plans necessarily. That's not what we're here to talk about. But what I am here to ask you about, Nicola, is your preferences with regard to holidays, because this can actually be a quite divisive topic, even leading in some cases to the end of relationships. If some couples are like severely apart on this, it's like a deal breaker that they never get past. But what I'm going to ask you first and foremost is one of the classic dichotomies of holidays, and I'm talking of course about the beach holiday versus the city holiday. And to clarify, both equal durations. Let's say it can be a week and a week, or it can be 2 weeks and 2 weeks, but what I want to know is, for you, which of those two is better?
It's a tough one, and it is a very different type of holiday. For me, it's not just a preference thing. It's also one where we're divided within the household at times, me and Maria. So one is more restorative, regenerative in a way, like if you're taking the beach holiday pure and simple, just lying on the beach, reading your book, getting your energies back, napping in the sun. Whereas the city trip, let's say, especially if you're going to a new city you haven't been before, can be more, what's the word, enriching. From a cultural perspective or whatever. You come away, having learned more about something else, about another culture or whatever. Whereas maybe the beach holiday, you're coming away, having gotten in touch with your deeper self.
But this is what I'm wondering, right? I wish I was one of those people who can do that. And it sounds like you're lucky enough that you can come away from a beach holiday and actually have felt that you spent your time well, right?
There's a time limit though for me.
For sure. For anyone, I'm sure there is as well. But the issue I have, and the reason I can't understand beach holidays to any extent really, is that pretty much from day one of a beach holiday, I'm suffering basically, or at least
you're restless.
I'm both physically and mentally suffering. Physically because I burn instantly, unfortunately, my terribly Irish skin.
Yeah,
and
I've seen that.
You have, firsthand. And then the issue is no amount of factor 50 is kind of enough. It's sooner or later it's going to either miss a spot or it's going to wear off.
Yeah.
So it's basically a stressful time altogether. But then on top of that, it just feels tragically unproductive for me. And I don't know. I'm not like a workaholic. I'm definitely not like someone who just like works weekends and evenings, compulsively. Right. I'm definitely not. But for me, if I'm going to take the time off work and going to get out of the country and go somewhere else, it better well be somewhere new, somewhere like interesting that I can actually like see new parts of the world, basically. So that for me, the beach holiday then just suffers massively in my enjoyment, and I find myself resenting almost every moment of it.
No, I can understand that. And it's like, I get very restless very easily. So I've grown to appreciate that beach holiday, but I certainly can't do it 2 weeks straight, even if you're changing the beaches. And 1 week is already on the limit. Like I'm kind of ready to go after that.
Yeah.
I like it. And then, so if you tell me, depending on the amount of days, I'll take the right city at 5 days over a beach holiday. The interesting thing about city trips is there's two very different kinds of city trips in my mind. There's the totally new city you've never been before, city trip, which especially the first few days can also be quite draining because everything is new. So it's those kind of like, let's say, first 3 days of a trip that you feel like you've been gone 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
There's the going back to a city where you've already done all the touristy stuff, and the pace is totally different. You can just kind of hang, go to visit, bunch of more, organize it, depending what you like around the food or stuff like this. You don't need to go take the pictures of all the monuments. And that actually, what I found, ends up being the sweet spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was actually just going to say, a thought that just occurred to me, which is, who needs tourist stuff? Like, I can't think of one time I went to a city and did the touristy stuff and was like, so glad I did the touristy stuff,
It's usually quite underwhelming.
Absolutely. Like, and no offense to Rome, but like all the top touristy parts there, Colosseum, Forum Romana, you name it. Those were the lowlights of our time in Rome, and the highlights were, of course, the food, like
the
drink,
food, the culture, talking to some people. Yeah.
So the more I think of it, I'm like, city trip all the way, and just skip all the tourist stuff. It's the same here in Copenhagen. Like the amount of people who head out to the Little Mermaid only to find it's tragically disappointing.
Here's one for you. What is the bigger disappointment, the Little Mermaid in Copenhagen or the mannequin piss, the little boy peeing in Brussels?
I think the winner here is the more disappointing is Little Mermaid, because for some reason it actually gets hyped up as being something good, like beautiful or whatever, where it's really, really not. The thing with Mannequin Piss is anyone who tells you about it, even like the guidebooks and stuff, they already say Europe's most underwhelming statue, or like the most disappointing.
Everyone's in on the joke.
Everyone knows, right? And then you get there and it's actually kind of cool in a weird way. Like I lived in Brussels for a year and would take people by it. Also, it's quite close to Grand Place, so you can just kind of swing
and they
by.
decorate it.
Yeah, all the time. He does a Paddy's Day leprechaun version. He does all sorts. Yeah.
Shout out to Brussels, who when we do the LIP city chaos rankings, will definitely be in contention for the top
I'm holding
spot.
that one back because I've got some thoughts on that. I'm actually heading to Brussels this weekend as well, so I'll be careful not to
Good man.
ruffle any feathers. Yeah. So
I'll be just about an hour and a half north of you in Rotterdam.
Hey,
Yeah.
not too shabby.
Yeah, the second city of the Netherlands.
One of the biggest logistics hubs in the world. How about that?
Absolutely.
Exciting.
I think biggest port in Europe.
I think so.
Bigger than Hamburg even.
Comfortably, actually. The thing is like a city in itself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unreal.
Well, there you go. Jeez, that wasn't where we intended to go. But there you go.
We went slightly off piste, but speaking of pistes,
Yeah. Oh,
you posed to me the question, city trip or beach trip.
I did.
What if I told you that I would take a mountain trip any day? And I'm talking, let's even it out. So for the summer, I'll take the mountain trip any day over this.
That I think it puzzles me a bit. And you're not alone. Like I've heard people talking about this, and particularly in the context of the melting snow that we have now across Europe, where the ski season gets shorter and shorter. These mountain holidays are becoming more of a real thing, actually, where you go not to ski, but to be in the mountain and to do mountainy stuff like hiking or tobogganing or whatever. I don't know. So
I think you need snow to go tobogganing.
not tobogganing, but you know those like snow-free toboggans, like they're like a metal track that runs down the mountain.
Oh, yeah,
And
sure.
you just like sit in it and you crank the...
Yeah, with like wheels on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a summer luge, basically.
Exactly, yeah, but so ski resorts now who are particularly low in terms of meters above sea level are having to look into these kind of things now. And that has a bit of an appeal, and I could see it, but I think you're just ahead of the curve here, because personally, that strikes me as similar to a beach holiday, that you're going to be in nature, and nature's great, you're going to be enjoying that, but just tragically not getting input. Like you're going to be spending each day consuming stuff, I guess, which is going to be books or nature or whatever. But there's not going to be like newness or like novelty to you, which for me I think is key.
Okay, I see where you're going, but keep in mind the versatility of the activities you can do in the mountains in the summer,
well,
right?
hit me,
Because you can hit your little luge thing, right? Which you were mentioning. By the way, we need to get the proper name for that one down. But you can mountain bike. You can hike, of course. I mean, that's the main thing. You can climb. I mean, there's so much you can do to not, especially if you're restless. So like me, I love to be active and sporty and in the nature during the holidays. For me, that's amazing. But then you can be master of productivity. You can be very productive with whatever that activity is until a bit after lunchtime, or maybe up until lunchtime. Then have a wonderful lunch in the sun, right? Because you're closer to the sun. And then you can relax and spa in the afternoon, do those types of things. Go to your beloved sauna, for example. And you kind of get the best of both worlds in terms of relaxation and, physical exertion.
And now, is this like at what would be a ski resort in the winter, or is it just anywhere? Okay. So you would go back to where you do actually ski.
I do that.
Okay.
Yeah. I do
Well,
that.
I think I shouldn't knock it until I try it. It has an appeal, or it's sounding reasonably interesting here. But then again, I'm hesitant, because the city trip is the goat for me, 100%. Like a new city, just throw me in there and I'll be fine.
I think it's where you can experience the most and learn the most, for sure. There I'm totally aligned with you. I mean, also, like, as you know, I'm writing a lot of pieces when I travel, and a big part of that is the people I meet along the way and what I hear from them. Like these first-hand accounts to connect with the local culture. Of course, you're going to get a lot more of that in the city than climbing up a mountain and or lying on a beach with
and I
other
suppose
tourists.
it still comes back to your first point, which is there's two types of holidays, and one of them is about expanding your horizons, and the other is about kind of thinning them, if anything. Just kind of removing distractions and saying it's just me and nature here for the next while.
And that's funny, actually. There's this very interesting phenomenon, and it's not it's not to offend anyone, but it's not really my thing. So last winter, Maria and I, we went off to Lanzarote for 2 months, and we set up shop there, and we worked from there, and then on the weekends we would enjoy the beach, whatever. But a big thing we noticed there is these places are essentially colonies of English people, Irish,
exactly.
German,
Exactly.
where even the supermarkets sell the food they have at home. The restaurants are the ones they would have at home. So everything is done in a way to not be bothered by experiencing the local culture at all.
100%, yeah.
The only variable that changes for them versus home is that the sun is shining stronger.
Literally, yeah.
That's
tragic.
type of holiday. Yeah, I think we can agree that people should move away from that.
True,
in
yeah.
a way.
Or it's like, what is it you're actually wanting here? Like, what's the
Right.
product you're buying? And if it's just to be in the sun, then okay, and you're being honest about that, then that's fine. But that's a very expensive way just to warm up a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, there's so much more. And then again, it's all about your tolerances and what you like. And
Also,
you know,
comfort zone is a big thing for people.
indeed. And I'm not going to judge anyone, you know? If someone's about to go off to the same place that they've gone for the last 10 years and they love that and that's cool, then absolutely do it. I'm just saying, for me, for my preference, that would be undoable.
Top city trip?
Tokyo, all the way.
Tokyo?
Yeah.
You can
It's
spend
unbeatable.
10 years in Tokyo and
Exactly.
only see one part of it, right?
100%.
33 million people.
You need to like deeply prioritize your time and like know what you want to do, but you basically can't go wrong. At least in my experience, like any day you spend in Tokyo, you're gonna have a brilliant time,
Yeah.
and you'll never run out of stuff to do, see, eat, drink, whatever.
And that's the thing about those like sprawling metropolises is they have so many different faces to them.
Yeah,
Like take even New York, for example, like whether you're going in Sunnyside, Queens or up to Harlem or into Brooklyn or downtown Manhattan, it is different cities
Yeah,
all
100%.
within the same, space.
And more going to Manhattan now, it's like you have to get out of Manhattan because it's just so expensive.
Exactly.
Like you have to get to Queens or Brooklyn just
Exactly.
to experience more of it.
Yeah.
But geez, we've
Yeah,
what
look
a
at that.
wide-ranging little mundane postulation this has turned out to be. We normally spend something in the region of like 8 to 10 minutes. I
Yeah.
think we've probably blown through
About
that.
15, yeah. So
there you go.
listeners, there you go. Hopefully that gives you some input for your upcoming spring and summer holidays.
Absolutely. And if nothing else, what I'd be interested to hear from the listener is we've outlined basically 3 types of holidays, which is city, beach, and mountain. Is there another type of holiday? And I'm not saying let's open it up again, but if the listener is going to come back and say, well, actually there is, and it's XYZ, I'd be very interested to hear that.
Listeners, welcome back to Lost in Postulation. Now, before we go, we wanted to dig back into our listener mailbag because we had some old friends reaching back out to us about the topic of holidays, which we touched upon last episode.
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so the first one came from Frank from Rhode Island. Again,
Love it.
he wrote us an email this time, and he said that you guys discussed various types of travel settings, and I wanted to get your thoughts on taking vacations on a cruise ship. He goes on to say, I did some digging, and cruise travel is still recovering since the start of the pandemic, but at its peak, there were almost 30 million passengers taking cruise ships for vacation purposes a year. He even provided us with the sources of all his stats, and then he goes on to ask, for the sake of postulation, would you take a cruise, and if so, where would you go? Do you even consider it a holiday setting? Which we didn't even mention it last time, so...
And it's a very relevant question. Is it even really a holiday? At least for me, is it a holiday or is that torture? Who knows, right? I don't think it's torture though. I think it's good that he catches it because we did miss it entirely. And I would consider it a possibility for myself. However, big however, you got to watch out for when a holiday takes the holiday out of the holiday, you know? Like a big part of traveling for me is the traveling, you know, of the
Right.
getting from A to B and seeing stuff on the way. And, you know,
Right.
even the little hardships along the way are kind of part of it, you know?
Right.
And to some extent, a cruise ship is kind of, it's easy mode, right? Which is great. And it suits a certain type of person. And particularly, I think older demographics, it really suits because they can see a lot on a trip that they otherwise
Right.
couldn't really do, right? But I think... despite the targeted ads I've been getting from cruise ships on YouTube recently, they're really going after us, I think, like the 30 plusers, right? Or let's say late 20s to early 30s. I still think it's not quite where I'm going to be dropping the cash for now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe in a few years, maybe if I lose the interest in the wide world, but yeah.
Went on a few as a kid, loved it as a kid because,
Yeah,
I mean, well, you got water slides, you got whatever you want on these ships nowadays.
Yeah.
But you're stopping in to visit places for 10, 12 hours maybe,
Yeah.
right? You're only gonna get some highlights usually. So Yeah, it is a holiday setting, sure. Would I take one now? Probably not. No, not anymore.
Yeah. I think it'll come back, like, as in, it'll come back in relevance for us and for everyone at some point in your life, you know. But for me, for now, for you, for now, I think it's a no thanks on cruise ships.
In the meantime, thanks to Frank from Rhode Island.
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank. We have one more actually coming in from our man on the ground in Helsinki or near there.
Unbelievable.
We're talking, of course, about Ilka, our friendly Finn. Ilka has come back to us on some other holiday topics. He has said, you forgot the Nordic going to cottage holidays, which actually I've never really done myself, but the sommerhus trend here in Denmark, everyone owns a house apparently. Everyone owns a second house and it's a summer house in the countryside.
It's a big deal.
Crazy. He mentions, and also boats, sailing. And his worst, a camping holiday. Which he
call that the worst?
He said, his words, the worst camping holiday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has no time for camping holidays.
No love for the camping.
I asked him to expand a little bit on it, and he said, thinking about the sailing specifically, it is basically posh camping, he says. Which actually is a huge take from Ilka.
Wow.
He says, one can spend the whole summer in an uncomfortable playhouse size of space and still think that you're better than caravanners.
Wow, okay.
Which is shots fired at the sailors. Yeah. Now, I'm not a sailor. I haven't ever counted myself in that demographic, but it doesn't appeal to me objectively. I mean, I've seen the size of boat or size of cabin that you'd have doing like a long-term trip around, say, somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
You know? It would be incredibly isolated, you know?
Yeah.
And quite uncomfortable.
Well, and also quite dangerous. My uncle actually last year or 2 years ago, he crossed the Atlantic on a sailboat, and they came quite close to risking it all.
Exactly.
My wife used to sail while growing up, and she's kind of from a family of like of sailors.
Yeah.
So maybe from a sporty perspective, I never had the patience to learn it.
Yeah.
But on a holiday, for me, it's veering into that cruise ship direction. I think
Exactly.
you really have to love the sea
Yeah.
for what it is in terms of the water and the horizon.
Kind of warts and all, or like you take the bad with the good kind of. You're one of
Right.
those people who loves the suffering of it kind of.
Right, exactly.
I think so. I think I would run out of patience like a day into it and I'd just be like, no thanks. You know?
And
So
on the summer house, on the summer cottage, thoughts there?
Big mistake. So one time, during COVID, we rented a summer house
you did it.
just for 2 nights, like.
Okay.
And even by the end of that second night, we were like, right, that's it. Let's get out of here. Like it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's great and it's kind of aspirational, especially for Danish people. It's like one of the checkpoints in your life when you buy a summer house. It's like something you should do, you know.
It's crazy.
But
Preposterous.
for me, that's not on my list. Let's put it that way. And if ever I have the opportunity to buy a property, I will probably buy it in a warm place. And
Well, there you go.
there you go.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up. But what about you? Are you a summer house guy?
Not a big one. I mean, look, for me to get a summer house in a place where you're not even sure your July is going to be above 20 degrees, meaning the water is even significantly colder.
Exactly.
It just doesn't hit the spot for me, especially in this era where, you know, flying around Europe, for example, is probably as cheap as it's been.
Exactly.
And then once you get to those places, actually the day-to-day living is cheaper than, for example, in a Nordic country. So for me, it's not a big thing. I get the pull. I mean, a lot of it is tradition for the people here, but also a lot of it is somewhere where you can just get out for the weekend without having to go through all the logistics nightmare of flying or,
But if you think about it, like,
whatever.
do you need to own a house for that? Like, you know, if
No.
your goal is to occasionally get out into the
Right.
countryside, you just don't need to own a house for
Right.
that, really.
No,
in my view.
exactly.
But,
Well, it's kind of, it goes into that category of like, you see people saying, oh, now I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Next checkpoint, this.
That's
you
what I
know,
do.
then
That's-
buy a house
yeah.
that's too big for me and get a huge mortgage.
Exactly.
And, you know, so it's all a
dog
bit of,
and
it can
yeah.
be a bit of herd thinking, right?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. I think we've solved it here. We've once again just solved all the issues with the
There you
world.
go. So, as Neil would say, guys, take a trip to a city, no matter what. Even if you don't like people.
Even if you don't
take
like
a trip
cities.
to a city.
Yeah, we're doubling down on that. Yeah. There you have it, a whirlwind tour through actually quite a few different episodes here that we've had over the past number of months, and hope it was enjoyable. I certainly enjoyed pulling it together and listening back. One reflection I have, of course, is that the audio quality has definitely, let's say, changed since the start, has for the better, I would argue. And I suppose a small apology for that, although then again, like, come on, it's been a learning process for us as well, learning by doing, and we appreciate you sticking with us all the way through. So I suppose without much else to say. I'm going to just drop again the socials as I am compelled to do, which is, of course, lostinpostulation@gmail.com for our emails, or @inpostulation if you're on the old Twitter. That would be awesome to hear from you, to send us your postulations, your ideas, your thoughts, your reflections. Always welcome. From our side, we'll be back next week with a normal episode, and we are hoping against hope that you'll join us then, and every other time that we postulate together here on Lost in Postulation. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. So thanks again for joining. Hope you enjoyed, and talk to you next time.